Wyoming on a freshman entering college might have a chilling effect on students taking advantage of the Hathaway Scholarship, not knowing whether they'll be able to find a job in Wyoming after they graduate. And so that was something to consider as well with that work requirement, in addition to the difficulty we might have as a Department of Education to enforce that, tracking down the kids where did they go? How do we claw back that scholarship money if they don't abide by the agreement? So those are some logistical challenges we'd have to work through as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Representative Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Shaner for being here today. I do have a question on when I went to school, after high school, I was able to receive the Hathaway Scholarship, but there's a tier system and how much money you're able to receive. Can you talk to us a little bit on, you mentioned that we're seeing less and less students actually utilize the Hathaway Scholarship. Can you talk to us about the different tiers and how each tier is being used?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, Representative Singh. Yes, there are different tiers that have different requirements with the ACT and GPAs, and then how much money you get when you're in each of those criteria. So honor, performance, opportunity, provisional. In terms of participation in each, Sean, do we have that information? Andy? Representative Sean McInerney is our accountability director, and he should be able to pull up how many kids are in each category. We can get that to you. I don't have it offhand right now, though.
All right, any for Representative Bratton?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Shaner, how do you, one concern that I have is this changes the rules for people who are already in the game. They've invested, 1, 2, 3 years of their lives here, and now they have to decide how, if they're going to continue under those rules. Can you, and then actually what you just mentioned about high school students, as they select their post-secondary path, what are the implications for that? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, through you, Representative Bratton, I think Section 2 at the bottom of page 3 makes sure that it only applies going forward. Starts July 1, 2025.
Right.
So it would impact the decision-making for a senior who just graduated on what they're going to do. And they may be counting on Hathaway now, but maybe not if this change were to happen. And then the second part of your question was, can you repeat the second part?
Go ahead.
Actually, I think you answered that.
Okay.
Yeah, just about the career
Okay.
path. Mhm.
Any further questions? Representative Bratton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm not sure if this is a question for you or for the bill sponsor, but if you, so let's say you pursue a degree in wildlife biology and there's nothing available when you graduate, then, do you have to stay here and work in the hospitality business until something becomes available because you're committed to working here for a certain number of years after you complete your degree? Could one of you answer that? Well, the whole enforcement thing too.
Yeah. Chairman Andrew, through you, Representative Bratton, that is one concern the superintendent has. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you. Is there any public testimony on this bill? Seeing
Mr.
none,
Chairman, you do have one individual online whenever you're ready for that.
let's go ahead and talk to the person online while we're waiting for people to fill the chairs.
Sounds good. I am letting Devin Brubaker into the room.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Good afternoon. Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Devin Brubaker. I'm the airport director for the Southwest Wyoming Regional Airport, and I am the president of the Wyoming Airports Coalition. Just standing before you all in support of this bill, the Wyoming aviation system and the aviation system across our country is facing a significant shortfall in pilots and aircraft mechanics. We appreciate the bringer of this bill. The language in here provides clarity and makes sure that students in Wyoming can pursue these high-paying jobs while still taking advantage of the Hathaway Scholarship here in Wyoming, while making sure that these key industries across the state have the employees necessary to be able to continue and grow. So we stand in support of this bill and look forward to working with you all and the rest of the body to see this come to fruition.
Thank you. Are there any questions? No questions. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Clark Fairbanks with the Wyoming Youth Service Association, and I stand before you today in support of this bill. In my perspective in working for 30 years with youth in placement, oftentimes are aging out foster children. I believe this provides expanded opportunities for kids that have young adults who have very little parental support, and that includes financial support. And it's a way to allow them additional opportunity and keep them in our workforce and give them opportunities to increase their ability to move up in the workforce. So I would just ask your support of this bill. Stand for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, thanks. Any further public testimony from the room? Ms. Taylor, good afternoon.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, we had two of us, so we were waiting until two chairs emptied up. My name's Erin Taylor. I'm the Executive Director of the Wyoming Association of Community College Trustees, and it's nice to be back with you again. And with me today, I have President Janelle Oberlander, who is the president at Gillette College. And so it's nice to have an expert here with me. And I wanted to just say I really appreciated the history that you received from Representative Harshman. You know, a lot of things like this are years in the making, right? And so there's been a lot of conversation over, is the Hathaway meeting the needs of not only the kids? Now you have to look at the workforce side of things. We've adjusted it over the years to allow for certificate programs. Now this is for non-credit certificate. Absolutely, WACD supports something like that. I think there probably are some things that will need to be thought through a little bit more, particularly as to the department's rulemaking process and administration, but I think it's probably doable. So we're just here to offer any support, whatever that may look like. And if it's at your pleasure, Mr. Chairman, I would love for Dr. Oberlander to say a few words.
Dr. Oberlander, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chairman. Good afternoon, Committee. Thank you for the opportunity. I am Janelle Oberlander. I'm the president of the newly Gillette Community College District. You may have heard earlier, we've received our go-ahead for accreditation. So thank you for the opportunity to speak on this amendment. Mr. Harshman, thank you as well for your continued support. My career in higher education spans over 30 years, and it has all been in two-year education. I've seen a great shift in the support for two-year education. It used to be said that only people who cannot go to four-year education go to two-year vocational education. That's changed. We start to see this shift, and we certainly see it in Wyoming, and we certainly see it at Gillette College. We have a robust education, both in two-year transferable, but also two-year career and technical education, as well as certification. We have now begun expanding into a workforce program at Gillette Community College District. Our workforce is telling us they need additional employees with training that does not necessarily require a degree. So we stand in support of this bill. We stand in support of this amendment. Certainly, we know that there are opportunities to further enhance this through policy and procedural change, but I have had faculty and our staff come to me and say, please support this amendment. It would be good for our workforce. It would also be very good for our training opportunities for our students, and certainly opportunity to expand our workforce and for those who wish to stay in Wyoming. We want our graduates to stay in Wyoming, and this is a way to help further enhance that opportunity for our workforce and for our industrial partners. And with that, I'm happy to stand for any questions as well.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Dr. Oberlander or Ms. Taylor? Representative Foley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here. You're doing a wonderful job in Gillette. I think it's fantastic. I have a question for you, because you mentioned specifically the idea of the staying here in Wyoming. How would you view it if we made that an optional part of it? That, in other words, students could go ahead and participate if they otherwise qualified, but they had the option to enter into this agreement and have some of get something in return, like somehow we make it where it's an optional thing, so maybe they get it, or they can get additional years or something. I'm concerned about kids. I want kids to stay here. That's a very big priority, and I really appreciate the bringer of the bills wanting to focus on that, but it might be too restrictive for some kids to, maybe they get a offer somewhere else, and maybe that's, what's best for them. And so I don't, I'm kind of concerned about that part of the bill, and I just wondered what you thought about how we might construct it, that there's some optional thing they get if they sign an agreement, but they can still go through take the opportunity to use the Hathaway. Yep.
Mr. Chairman,
Dr. Oberlander.
thank you very much. Representative Lally, I would defer to the bringer of the amendment, but I would also mention that we know that there are programs in surrounding states that have these types of requirements. South Dakota being one, Build South Dakota. I was there when that legislation started quite a long time ago, but it is a requirement. I believe, and Ms. Taylor and I were visiting about the Wyoming investment in nursing, and off the top of my head, I apologize, I can't remember if the requirement, if those students receive funding under the WIN program, if they're required to stay. So there are some similar programs within our state, but I would defer to the bringer of the amendment to address his amendment.
Representative Harshman, I'll invite you to work the bill with
Okay,
us and
Mr. Chairman,
us
yeah,
at that time.
Mr. Chairman, and we talked about this, but I think there's two parts to this bill. The one part I'd really think we could fix, and it's paragraph A, lines 1 through 16 on page 2. The second part, this payback, for your consideration, and if you don't like that, it's easy just to draw a line right through that and take it out of the bill. And because I don't want that to hold up this other part. And maybe that would be a great interim topic for you guys to look at all of these programs from WWAMI, Witchy, Hathaway, Wyoming's Tomorrow's coming online. And then I think also the amounts paid out of Hathaway need to be increased. It's been a long time. The fund is doing extremely well. It could easily tolerate a 10% increase. Because as you heard, our numbers are down. We have less children in Wyoming than we did 40 years ago. We just do. I mean, we're getting older as a state. And so I think all those things would be a big picture for this committee to maybe look at and maybe take that little concept out of this bill just to get this through and correct that fix for our workforce. Kids who qualify for the Hathaway but want to get a non-credited certification. That takes longer than a 2-year process.
All right, let's finish public testimony. Is there any further public testimony? One more. Anyone else would like to testify, please come forward now. Otherwise, it'll be closed.
Mr. Chairman,
Good afternoon.
Sean McInerney with the Wyoming Department of Education. Coming up to address Representative Singh's question about the enrollment within the different levels of the Hathaway Scholarship. And I would like to say that every year the department is required to submit a Hathaway report to the legislature with numbers, charts, graphs, et cetera, that I can share with you after this meeting. But I'm pulling these numbers from that report for Hathaway new enrollment, and this is across all institutions, where in the 23-24 school year, we had roughly 412 students in the provisional level, 348 in the opportunity level, 676 in performance, and 614 in the honors level, giving us the total number of new enrollments across the board at 2,050. Comparatively speaking, before pre-COVID, taking a step back, and that's been roughly right around 2,000 the past 4 years. Pre-COVID, we were looking at 2,400 plus in those years before that time as well.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Representative Braden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So And what do you see is driving that drop in numbers?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Bratton, we've had some discussions across at the department. We've consulted with community colleges and UW, and it's across the board, basically. There was some, some concerns at COVID, kids just, or students just didn't want to go to school, and some, are looking at different opportunities. We haven't narrowed it down to one specific things other than it's any number of things these days.
Thank you.
Follow up? Any further questions? Seeing none, public testimony. Is there one? One more? All right, go ahead. Good afternoon.
Members of the committee, my name is Cindy Barlow. I'm coming today as an individual and testifying, and yet also, full disclosure, my position with WyoTech, being a technical school down in Laramie, Wyoming. We do I stand in support of this bill. I think it's a great bill, opening up the certificates and having this conversation that we're having today about technical careers and what that means to our workforce. I work specifically with industry, and I can tell you, especially across the state of Wyoming, what that means to us and being able to get kids into the industry and into them quickly. And just as the state of Wyoming sits, we all know that CTE teachers are what is needed to be able to really help the backbone of America and get these kids out there and really get them participating in viable careers that really pay well. As a mom, I can tell you that all three of my boys are in what is known as trade jobs. My oldest son actually drilled the biggest underground water oil well in America. My two oldest boys in Alaska. So I can tell you that hard work, ranch raised, knows what it's like, common sense, not being afraid to get into the hard work of what it means to work in the trades. I would like to be able to see an amendment brought forward on this, just in the inclusion of being able to look at technical schools, whether they're for-profit or not, to be eligible for this. I mean, even in Wyoming, a lot of our kids never even get the chance to be able to go to some of these other schools because of financial funding. If you look at what goes on with a lot of these students, it's usually that gap funding that gets them into these colleges and to have that opportunity. And if not, they fall along the wayside. I can tell you that Wyoming industries are facing a shortage of qualified workers, particularly in critical sectors like transportation, energy, construction, agriculture, manufacturing. As we've all heard from other bills and conversations already in this session, there's an urgent need to develop a pipeline of qualified technicians as soon as possible. Expanding the Hathaway Scholarship to include for-profit and technical schools in the state of Wyoming, just for Wyoming kids, can truly make and take a vital role in addressing this demand and ensuring that we can meet the workforce of today and tomorrow. After all, we need all of our Wyoming educational facilities to help with this issue. The focus of being able to look at for-profit schools isn't for expanding, it's truly just in helping Wyoming kids stay in Wyoming, solving our workforce problems, and keeping students in the state to live and to work and to contribute in our communities. I can tell you that industry is also willing to jump in there and help. I work with multiple ones of them of doing reverse tuition reimbursement programs. So with the support of something like this, helping the students to be able to get into school, industry is also willing to help work with them right here in the state of Wyoming with those tuition fees. I urge you to look past the misconception that working with for-profit or other technical schools would, other than expanding opportunities for our students, This is about expanding opportunities for Wyoming students to receive high-quality, accredited education and training of technical fields that are critical to our state's industries. And sometimes it's looked at as though we are not accredited, that we don't hold these standards, and yet we do have to hold these standards to do what we're doing. We are ACCSC accredited. The Department of Education recognizes that. We hold ourselves to even a higher standard of being ASE certified for our teachers and technicians. I hope that you guys will look and have this consideration as we work forward, but we stand for this bill. We think that he was very forward-thinking in opening up the Hathaway to be able to bring these certificates in light and allow these students to be eligible for such. And I stand for any questions.
All right, thank you. Representative Strzok.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. And Mrs. Barlow, so here, how does the school align with the state's educational priorities, as such as increasing access to higher education or supporting workforce?
Ms. Barlow, please, thank you. Please answer quickly as we are
I
running
will.
out of
I'll
time to work
hurry.
the bill. Thank
Hurry.
you.
Chairman Andrews, and Representative Strzok, we do align. We have a full reporting system that we are able to tell you guys today how many students we've placed, where they've gone. We also have to look at that retention for that first year. Have they remained in the industry? Our standards of ACCSC accreditation definitely stands with those that are aligned with the Hathaway to be able to keep us in line with education requirements.
Thank you. Any further questions? All right, seeing none, public testimony is now closed. Committee, what is your pleasure? Moved by Vice Chair Lawley, seconded by Representative Erickson. And Representative Harshman, please feel free to stay here and work the bill with us. I think there's a couple amendments. Are there any amendments? Vice Chair Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Here comes some written ones. All right, have fun. Oh, okay. I move that, starting on page 1, we delete on line 3, starting with the word requiring through line 5, after the word scholarship. That deleted, and then to delete, also on page 3, line 3, a period after certificate. I think this works, but Steve, watch it, watch what I'm doing here. Put a period after certificate, delete the balance of that line, and then lines 5 through 16. Yes.
Chairman.
Representative Harshman.
Mr. Chairman, just to represent Lawley on, I think after certificate and who meets the following qualifications refers to previous paragraphs that are already in statute.
Oh, I'm
So you'd
sorry.
want to leave that. I think just the
Yes.
new language is what
Yes.
that's underlined.
Thank you
So
for
just,
catching.
and requirements on
Yes.
page 4. And then Romanet 4, lines 6 through 16.
Yes, thank you.
Vice Chair Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Harshman, for that assist there. Can I speak to the amendment for just a minute?
Yes, please.
Okay. I think this is such a wonderful move, and I really appreciate Representative Harshman for bringing this bill, because it's just going to be another tool in the toolbox, and we do need to encourage these kids. But I do like the idea also of an interim study that begins to look at things like lining up how we have with some of the other programs we have that require some kind of working off, or at least an option to work off. So I'd like to, consider that as an interim topic, look at that. So that's why I wanted to take it out, but I want the bill to go forward. I want to move ahead with this idea. I do have some questions about the broader Hathaway bill and how it's written, and if we could really do anything in this bill to add technical schools, but that's just another issue.
Mr. Chairman.
Representative Hart?
On this amendment, was it seconded? Did you get a second?
Are you going to say?
Second it, okay.
Yes.
Just a real
Sorry, who
quick.
seconded it, Mr. Chairman?
Representative Erickson
Thank you.
seconded.
Okay, I just, full support of this amendment. I think it, I won't go into why I put it in there, but I've kind of talked to you about it. It probably needs to come out in this bill. And I think the study of these private, for-profit, certified trade schools is worthy. We've studied it before. We obviously have constitutional issues with public funds, but I think we can continue to study that. And there's, I think with like Wyotech that was mentioned, is doing some collaboration with our university, and perhaps like the welding school in Gillette, which is one of the better ones anywhere. Maybe there's collaboration with Gillette College that can allow this committee to come forward with a proposal for that. I think it's absolutely worth your time to study that. These are complicated issues, not for this bill, I think, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. So full support of this amendment.
Thank you.
All right, is there any further discussion? Oh, Representative Braden on the amendment?
On the amendment, I just want to make sure I understand the amendment. So first of all, I understand the part about removing basically and requirements, and then 6 through 17 and removing that part of it. That's one aspect to the amendment. And then are we going to study the trade school in the interim, or is that also part of this amendment?
Vice Chair Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, that was just kind of another discussion that somewhat relates to the amendment, but
Yes,
kind of
like
conceptually
that,
what
but-
we may do. Typically, what happens is somebody over there that we rely on will keep track as we kind of start adding up possible interim topics. So I kind of was engaging in that way. The other part of the amendment is on page 1 in the enacting clause, so that we line it up with the amendment itself. So, but no, that was just somewhat of a side discussion, but also for the benefit of our staff that we're headed that way. So, yeah, thank you.
Any further discussion on the amendment? All in favor, say aye. Aye. No. The amendment passes. Any further amendments?
Mr. Chairman, real quick, I do believe that there will be some conforming amendments later on in this bill. Does LSO have the latitude to make those? Thank you.
Yes. Representative Strzok?
Well, thank you, Chairman. So I did have an amendment here, has been given, but it's what I'm understanding at this point. It's something that we probably should bring up later. Is it too, just not to bring, so just wanted to clarify that with some of you that, did you see it? Representative Harshman? would like you
Representative
to-
Strzok, do you maybe want to propose your amendment and then see?
Okay. I would like to propose an amendment, please. So on page 1, line 5, after scholarship, we would insert adding Wyoming accredited technical or trade schools as eligible institutions for the Hathaway Scholarship. And then on page 1, line 11, and then we would insert, and then put after 1216, insert in the 1X, and then page 2, line 9, after community college, and then we didn't insert that again for a Wyoming accredited for profit or nonprofit technical or trade schools. And then page 2, line 10, after community college, insert or a Wyoming accredited for profit or nonprofit technical or trade school. And then page 2, after line 16, eligible oh my goodness, means the University of Wyoming, a Wyoming accredited for profit or nonprofit technical or trade school, or a Wyoming community college. So that would be just really the crux of it, is just to go ahead and add that our technical schools could be, these kids could apply for this scholarship. Thank you.
Do we have a second and then we could discuss the amendment? Seconded by Representative Kelly. Discussion, Representative Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I actually agree with the intent of the amendment. I really think it's an important thing for us to do. But there are some things we might need to consider constitutionally and do it in the best way where it doesn't be challenged because of Hathaway is set up on the basis of funding Wyoming higher education institutions. And so might have to wrestle with that a little bit. But I, again, think that should be part of the interim topic. I think we should try to get this done. But I want to make sure we do it in a way that's legally defensible and can stick, because I think it would be helpful for workforce development and for options, choices for our families and for our kids in higher education. So.
Representative Strzok.
Thank you, Chairman. So they are working with UW, a lot of these, and it is, there is a lot of collaboration already, so just wanted to make everyone aware of that.
Further discussion? None? All right. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no.
No.
All in favor. All in favor. 1, 2, 3, 4. And all opposed. Amendment fails. Representative Lawley.
I was just going to, no, Ashley, for Ashley, this, put it on the list of interim topics for us to review later.
Is there any further discussion on the bill? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Chairman, on House Bill 36, Hathaway Scholarship Amendments do pass as amended. Representative Bratton.
Aye.
Representative Erickson.
Aye.
Representative Guggenmoss.
Aye.
Representative Kelly.
Aye.
Representative Lawley.
Aye.
Representative Singh.
Aye.
Representative Strzok.
Aye.
Representative Williams.
Aye.
Chairman Andrew.
Aye.
That is 9-0.
The bill is passed. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.